Welcome to the Altered Call podcast. Today we will be discussing the challenges that men face in taking care of ourselves. Overindulging in the self is a clear violation of biblical principles, but taking care of yourself such that you can be an effective steward is mandatory if you wish to serve God well in all of the areas of your life. My name is Pillischafske. I believe that Pluto is a planet. I believe that coffee is nothing more than a sugar delivery system, and I believe that you are uniquely created to reflect God's glory in the world. All right, review time. As Christians, we are meant to bring glory to God generally through our purpose and specifically through our various callings. The enemy wants to prevent this by forcing us to stumble in any of an infinite number of ways. Stewardship is the application of our current knowledge and ability to defend our lives against that enemy. The discipleship path is an optional framework that you can use to build and maintain standards that relate to self, family, vocation, and church. As we progress in our faith, these standards will change as God grants clarity around our calling and which areas we are called to defend most vigorously. We will start by establishing minimum standards to ensure that we are being faithful in all areas of our life, and then expand each area as we see fit towards our dream outcomes, or a specific call of God, by leveraging any extra capacity that we can extract from the other areas of our life. Today we're going to start with an overview of self. Most of the men that I know, myself included, struggle to take care of ourselves in any meaningful way. We tend to either get caught up in our responsibilities for others, ignoring our own needs in the process, or we find an unhealthy balance of overindulging in self that prevents us from having an impact in the world. In the coaching that I have done, it is common for men to have a variety of symptoms that they perceive to be the primary source of strife in their life. But upon digging deeper, it is almost always tied to a failure to care for themselves as they pursue their other goals. We like to think that our mind, body, and spirit can endure any pain so long as it keeps us moving forward. But if we push ourselves too hard, we will either break or we will slowly begin to fail in every area of life as our energy and focus slowly deplete and we lose our ability to perform to our standards across the board. Many men are taught that they need to sacrifice of themselves in order to take care of those around them. There is obvious truth to this idea, as any step that you take beyond yourself automatically includes a sacrifice of self to some degree. You will never reach your individualistic peak when you make the decision to have a wife and family. Any time and attention given to them is definitionally time that you can't spend building yourself up. The problem is that we can take this idea too far and give of ourselves in a way that is harmful instead of sustainable. You are not a sacrifice towards the future sustainability of your family as they build a life upon your corpse. Instead, you are designed to lead them by example, giving the very best of yourself while retaining enough of yourself to be effective in the fight. To be clear, I am also not advocating against sacrificing towards your family's future. I just want to make sure that we are sacrificing the right amounts at the right times. When setting minimum acceptable standards, we will be using a double minimum, by setting them such that they are 1, glorifying to God given our unique circumstances, and 2, strong enough to sustain the life that we desire to build on top of them. Ultimately, if you choose to adopt this framework, we will be setting 10 different standards as we go. 3 for self, 3 for family, 3 for vocation, and 1 for church. So the first step is to set all 10 in such a way that we can bear the weight of them all simultaneously. Once that is achieved, we then get to leverage any extra capacity that we have towards overachieving in any combination of areas that we choose. So with this in mind, how do we approach reasonable standards for self? Let's start with what we're up against. Inside of the self umbrella, I have broken them out into spirit, mind, and body. You can break those out further if you need to, but I think that's enough for a well-rounded approach. In the future, I'm going to break down each of these categories in detail. But I want to start with the 3 primary ways that the enemy likes to attack the self: through rest, comparison, and the ability to be present. When is the last time that you took a break? Not a vacation, but intentional time away from work or obligation. I mean, undistracted, unproductive time to yourself. Doing something that you enjoy simply to enjoy the process. I think that this is one of the single most fruitful things that you can have as a routine part of your life, and yet most of us avoid it like the plague. Instead of sleeping, most of us would rather spend hours watching screens that fill our minds with nonsense. Instead of enjoying the fruits of our labors, we are tempted into working harder while hoping that the financial gains will be sufficient to compensate for the wounds that we inflict along the way. Instead of being calm and still, we overstimulate or drug ourselves into hours-long stupors to avoid the things that will actually make us whole. I always considered it a badge of honor that I never pulled an all-nighter during college. I studied hard and I got mostly good grades, but the idea of staying up to or past the point of exhaustion never made sense to me. I would rather know slightly less and have a fully functioning brain on exam day than to attempt to force feed a bunch of material the night before and go into the exam exhausted. While I maintained that stance once I reached the real world, I would still work myself past the point of reasonableness on a regular basis. As with most things that God brings to my attention, he chose a particularly unhelpful time to convince me to take a Sabbath day each week. As a newly hired actuary, I was taking 2 exams per year, each requiring over 300 hours of study outside of my normal work week. It was commonly accepted in those days by my friends and family that they just wouldn't see me for a month or two before each exam because I'd be locked in a library somewhere studying. It was at this point that God decided that he wanted one of my weekly study days, Sunday, dedicated to him. I was sleeping well each night, and it felt like I was working effectively, but it wasn't until I had practiced a Sabbath for about a month that I learned the degree to which I had been kidding myself. I lost a bunch of theoretically productive time by relaxing for a full day, but by actually allowing my mind to rest, I was able to make similar progress despite the restriction. Add to that an improved attitude and appreciation for life, and I quickly decided to keep my new habit. I know that all situations are different, and certain careers carry different expectations. But I want to say this. If you think that you are too busy to rest, that is a problem. Maybe you don't have time to indulge, but you need to find time to rest and recover, or you are setting yourself up for systemic failure somewhere down the line. I've seen far too many of these collapses in the lives of my friends and family. It isn't as simple as an extended break. Usually something vital is destroyed in the process. Maybe you can rebuild it, maybe you can't, but rarely do you get to choose the items destroyed. Don't give the enemy this power over your future. Even in situations extreme enough that something must be sacrificed towards your rejuvenation, it is always better to intentionally make that choice yourself than to stress the entire system until something falls apart. The next trap that the enemy sets for us regarding self is with comparisons. We feel compelled to work so that we can have a certain type of house, drive a certain type of car, or afford a certain type of activity for our children. With almost no exceptions, there are people out there that are designed by God to be better in each and every area of life than you will ever be. And if you go to social media for feedback, you will find all of them. For any amount of money that you make, any physical shape that you work yourself into, any skill that you master, any consumable that you obtain, someone exists in the world that makes your achievement seem mundane by comparison. People aren't a cumulative list of high scores. I believe that you should spend time building yourself up. Make the most of the gifts that you have been given, but don't do it so that you can overcome someone else. Do it to ensure that when God calls you to action, that you will be ready to respond in the fullness of those giftings. It's okay to learn from other people's successes and failures, but focus on running your own race. The hard part of running your own race is that you can't clearly see the track in front of you. It's hard to know what you will be facing in the future or how you will need to equip yourself for the journey ahead. It's much easier to look at everyone around you and ask, how do I stack up? The problem with setting your standard to those around you is that you also can't see the path that is set before them. Maybe God is building them up for his purposes in the future. Maybe they have gotten lucky and a correction is coming. Maybe they are just supposed to be ahead or behind you by a particular metric. I heard this story the other day about a guy that was an elite athlete. If any one of us were to compare our bodies to his, we would be put to shame. Then one day he had an accident while skydiving and his body was completely shattered. The doctors told him that if he had been any less fit, his heart would have exploded on impact. Now maybe God allowed him to build his body up for the purposes of competing, and the skydiving thing was just bad luck. But I like to think that God knew this accident was coming and gave him exactly what he needed to overcome this tragedy. Either way, he had exactly what he needed in a situation that most of us will never find ourselves in. If I ever need the body of an elite athlete, or $1 billion, or even the ability to fix my own car, then I'm in trouble. I have none of these things, and I don't see myself developing any of them anytime soon. But I trust that I either have what I need, or I will be equipped with those things before I need to put them to work. The final overarching challenge that faces the self is most men's inability to be present in the moment. This is always the hardest for me personally. A few years ago, I ended up with hearing aids because my family's genetics are incredible, and as such, I gained the ability to have something playing in my ears at all times. Music, audiobooks, podcasts. I started to consume it all nearly endlessly. It was mostly good information, so it wasn't all toxic nonsense, but I quickly found that I would disengage from activities that I enjoyed because it was just easier to consume information instead of paying attention to the things happening around me. It is unbearably simple to get distracted in modern life, and there are lots of excuses that we can make as to why these distractions are beneficial, even as we know deep down that they are pulling us towards the abyss. I have very little ground to stand on here. I only recently started battling distractions in any serious way, and my progress has been undeniably inconsistent. But here's what I've learned. We struggle to hear God when we are distracted. We struggle to get genuine rest. We struggle to have valuable relationships. We struggle to drive properly. Every aspect of your life is improved if you simply pay attention to the things that you are currently engaging with. I recently created a new standard for myself in this regard. Be curious, don't consume curiosities. Being curious is extremely important to me. I love learning and I love looking at things from unique perspectives. But I found that I was devoting 40 to 50 hours a week towards listening to things instead of actively being present. The new standard is this. Instead of randomly going to the internet and accepting whatever it offers as a distraction, I set intentional time aside to sit and actively look for things that I want to learn more about. This limits my time spent flooding my brain with useless crap, focuses my mental energies toward topics that I genuinely enjoy, and allows me to focus on what I'm doing throughout the day. As of the recording of this episode, I've taken my average daily screen time from well over 8 hours a day down to consistently below 2 hours per day, reclaiming massive amounts of mental energy and focus in the process. I want to offer one last warning in the area of distraction. Your kids can tell. They may or may not accept that you are distracted in their presence, but they absolutely know that you are distracted. And while you may consider distracted play to be time spent with them, they will be less likely to consider it as quality time with you. Kids may be ignorant as a broad category, but they are also masters of social regulation and reading people. Don't think that they are fooled in this area. I have a friend that works long hours so that his wife can stay home with their kids. His kids get plenty of attention, but they don't get much of his time specifically. He wisely concluded that the second that he got home, he would put his phone away so that any of the time that they did get from him was undistracted and fully engaged. After they fall asleep, he can pick it back up again. In our house, we have the rule that we are primarily disengaged from our phones. But if we find the need to respond to a text or something for a period of time, we either leave the room until it is done, announce the disturbance to our kids, or both so that there is a clear line between engaged play and any distraction. I'm currently writing this outline in a children's play place. There are times when we come to such a place and I will run around and play the whole time. But today is a work day, and my kids respect that enough that I can get some work done without any hurt feelings. They know that I will do more engaged play later. Life isn't a competition. It isn't a test to see how much pain you can endure for the sake of others, and it isn't an inconvenience to be ignored. God gave you a life to live, blessings to enjoy, obstacles to overcome, and even if you don't appreciate it, those things matter to Him. You may never know the metric by which your life is evaluated, but faithful attention to God and His callings will ensure that you don't stray too far from the target. Live a life that embraces your favorite aspects of what He has given you. Follow His leadings and be content knowing that He will give you everything that you need to be successful. by His standards. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Altered Call podcast. You can reach me by email using alex@alteredcall.com, or you can visit the website for additional information.